guys, Frightening22 here, and welcome back to my 31 Frightening Days of Halloween Marathon. Considering tonight's Friday night, it's party time, so that's right guys, we're going to take a look at 1985's The Return of the Living Dead. And this film was actually written and directed by Dan O'Bannon, who actually garnered a lot of popularity and praise for himself for penning the screenplay for the classic Alien film, as well as going on to write further screenplays for such films as the 1986 remake of Invaders from Mars, as well as Light Force, reuniting him with director Tobe Hooper. Now, as I had said, The Return of the Living Dead was, he wrote and directed this film, and this was actually his directorial debut, and after this film, he only would go on to direct one more feature, 1992's The Resurrected. Now, this film in particular is really wonderful. In my personal opinion, probably the best zombie film out there today. I mean, it is my personal favorite as far as zombie movies go. I mean, I don't think you really get any better. I just think it has a perfect blend of horror and comedy, and it just blends beautifully. You know, you get your buckets of gore, along with a few laughs, and then just a great ass-kicking time to boot. Now, the story of this film goes, it deals with two bumbling employees who work in a medical supply warehouse, and when they accidentally release a deadly vapor gas into the air, it actually pretty much reanimates the dead at a local cemetery, you know, bringing them back to life to, you know, seek, you know, their favorite food, brains, on the town of Louisville, Kentucky. Now, as simple as a concept and a plot as that may be, especially for a zombie film, this film just delivers on so many levels. I mean, the time period that it was made, the mid 80s, at the the heart of the 80s, 1985. This is a really great, perfect period piece for the 1980s. So if you're a fan of that time period in history, you're really gonna love this movie for that, in particular. I mean, the supporting cast of characters are really wonderful, and they're really, 80s punk inspired, so it's really got a good vibe, as well as, really capturing that spirit at the time of its shooting, which I really, really love incredibly for in this film. Now, furthermore, the cast in this film is really solid. I mean, looking back on it retrospectively, this film actually garners a shit ton of classic horror actors all in one, wonderful film. You have the likes of Thom Mathews, who would go on to, take on the last part of Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th Part 6. You have Clu Gulager, who the same year, 1985, would play Jesse's father in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. You have one of the classic, best of scream queens of all time, Linnea Quigley. If you guys don't know Linnea Quigley's name by now, IMDb her and just look at her resume and you'll see all the classic B-movie, horror movies, and cult movies that she's been in over the years. Incredible actress in this, in all these genres. In addition, you have the likes of Brian Peck, who would go on to direct the underrated anthology, The Willies, as well as, the likes of Miguel Nunez, who also that same year would star in Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Furthermore, you have also had, the wonderful likes of actors like James Karen, who many of you would remember from such films as Girlfriend from Hell and Hard Bodies 2. And finally, you have Don Calfa, who would, many people would go on to recognize him from the Weekend at Bernie's movies. So within that amount of casting right there, I mean, you really get a good, strong vibe as to how cool, the casting in this movie really is. And everybody plays their parts really, really wonderfully. I mean, James Karen and Thom Mathews playing the bumbling employees at the medical supply house is really wonderful. I mean, they really capture, it's really through them that captures, probably some of the best, lighter moments of it, where you really see, a really great exchange of dialogue and humor emerging from them. One scene in particular when they unleash the deadly vapors into the air and they begin going on a coughing spree, and they begin to get really worried at the fact that the corpse that was hiding in the canister that the deadly gas emerged from, the two of them begin freaking out, and Thom Mathews' character pretty much calls James Cameron's character a shithead, and James Cameron just goes off on him that if he wants to keep his job, he'll watch his tongue. And Tom Matthews just kind of pissed off, goes on a rant by saying, "Keep this job? What do you mean?" So I've always loved that part. I mean, I'm sure that's a lot of people's favorite scenes in this movie, but that scene in particular really captures the really, funny, dark humor, in the midst of this, really gory, gory horror-filled plot. In addition, I mean, that's not really the only humor. It's the supporting cast of Tom Matthews' friends that are on their way to pick him up from work. But they end up hanging out in a cemetery waiting for their friend to get out of work. So as they're hanging out in the cemetery, it's obvious to see that the dead start to emerge from the cemetery that they're all hanging out in. But before that actually happens, I mean, you have really, just a really cool vibe of establishing these characters and really getting into like the funness of their group and whatnot. In addition, you're also treated to just random striptease from, the wonderful Linnea Quigley. I'm not exactly arguing about that, but it's just really random and also just really fun and just, goes on to really solidify this film as something really unique and special in the zombie subgenre. In addition to the casting, this film in particular, I've always liked how the zombies were treated. They weren't just, bumbling morons that just, couldn't speak and were walking and stuff. This film, the zombies were running really fast-paced. They actually could talk, so anytime paramedics would come, or cops would arrive, the whole group of the zombies would, attack them quickly, and then you constantly keep seeing a trend in the movie where the zombies keep getting on the receivers by telling them to send more paramedics or more cops. So that little part I've always really enjoyed because they really could really communicate with the outside world and really trick the humans into coming more. So it's just not as as easy as zombies are really stupid and slow, and if you're smart enough you could really outrun them. These zombies are really terrifying because they do have some kind of brain literally in their head, and they're fast, so that's what makes it 10 times scarier than your average zombie movie. Furthermore, they're the way that they're attacking, as much as it's very gory filled, like what many people had come to know at that time in the zombie genre is, it's a matter of ripping people from limb to limb. But the cool thing that I thought was awesome is that since they are yearning for brains in this, there's many scenes where you just see the zombies taking a victim and just literally chomping into their skull, which always just struck me as really cool. Just a really ferocious, just gnaw right into the hard skull to dig deep and to get that brain out. So that I always thought was really fantastic and really unique. It was just a really fun element to add to just how hungry these deadly zombies really were. Sticking on the zombies, the one zombie design in particular that you see a lot has been a zombie that, over the years has come to become known as Tarman. And the character design on this zombie in particularly is really, really cool. I mean, just really dark, gory filled with, the eyeballs, really profound and sticking out, and just really dark, gruffled, scratchy voice. I just always really, really dug that zombie design. So if you guys catch that, I mean, that is just a really, really solid piece of, makeup job and craftsmanship thanks to, the special effects team on this film. All that said, guys, I mean, if any of you guys have never seen this film, I don't really know what you're waiting for. It is, like I said, my personal favorite out of all the zombie films that are out there. You don't get much better. So if you guys enjoy this for additional viewing, certainly check out Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which is just as fun as Return of the Living Dead 1, as well as Return of the Living Dead 3, which, while not as good as the first two, still a suitable entry. So, with all that said, guys, don't hesitate on checking out the Return of the Living Dead this Halloween season. It's one of the best zombie films out there, and I know that all you horror fans will not be disappointed in this. As always, thanks again for tuning in to my 31 Frightening Days of Halloween Marathon, and I'll see you again tomorrow with yet another review. Thanks again, guys. This is Frightener22.